So I say my official greeting. Good morning to our friends in North and South America. Good afternoon to our friends in the UK and in Europe. Good early evening, our friend in Dubai. Good evening, our friends in India, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and a good late evening to our friends in Australia. I think we have one friend in Japan as well, I saw. So I hope you're all well. Nice seeing your faces and meditating with you. I believe JC has a juicy question for me.
Question 1. Dear Ajahn, thank you for guiding us. What contributes to the forming of personality? Should latent personality or old habits be changed as we further our practice? Should we intentionally change ourselves to be more mature and grown up? Sadhu.
So this is an interesting question. And I guess there's different types of Buddhists in the world. There are some Buddhists who like to focus on methods and present moment Dhamma in order to experience a sense of liberation in the present moment to the extent that that is possible. And that is excellent, wonderful. And then there are more traditional Buddhists who will take on all of the religious package, which has a belief in past lives and karma, rebirth and cosmology, heaven realms, hell realms, ghost realms, animal realms, etc. And actually, if we can combine both, you will find that you will have a rich and sophisticated and balanced practice. Sometimes these different schools like to be kind of either or. So it's like, I'm just a philosophy and methods guy. I'm going to try to get as enlightened as I can moment by moment. And then there are other people who do lots of pujas and lots of mantras and don't put much effort into trying to genuinely make the mind as peaceful as possible in the moment. There's a lot of joy that comes from faith and doing things with a heart of faith, but a bit weak on the determination to be mindful in the present moment and establish a sense of clarity in the present moment. But if we can combine these things, it would be sophisticated, nuanced, and powerful. At least that's my belief. So I am a traditional Buddhist. You know, I've put on this monk's robe. I've been a monk for 25 years. I have faith in the entire package of Buddhism. And in any Sutta Pitaka, it is interesting to notice, because there are these people sometimes like to say, the Buddha didn't really talk about devas, the Buddha didn't really talk about past lives, and as if the Buddha only taught anapanasati and the four foundations of mindfulness. But in any Sutta Pitaka, even the ones, Sutta Pitaka meaning a volume or section of suttas, even the ones that contain the Anapanasati Sutta and the Satipatthana Sutta, there is very, very consistent reference to the existence of past lives. And Lord Buddha did say that conventional right view, there is a conventional right view and there is an ultimate right view. And in conventional right view, there is past lives, there are future lives, there is karma, there are other realms. Ultimate right view, everything's ultimately empty. You shouldn't indulge in dualistic thoughts about self and others and thinking about the past and the future. So we actually need to have both of these. The conventional right view is what supports one to realize and have insights into the ultimate right view. They are not, you don't have to have one or the other. You have to integrate both and then realize both the conventional reality and the ultimate reality. So the type of personality that you have now, according to what I believe, according to what Lord Buddha explains, is the result of your millions of past lives, largely. And then obviously your social conditioning this lifetime is a fairly important factor. And latent personality type is a very powerful phenomenon. So even among arahants, there was Lumpur Mun and Lumpur Mun's disciples, and there was Lumpur Sao, Lumpur Mun's teacher. Even among the great arahants of last century, they had very different personalities. It's not the case that when a great practitioner becomes an arahant, they obliterate the personality and they become some kind of archetypal arahant, which is like some ice cube without any without any personal attributes or sorry, I'm just getting a flat battery. 1 second. Yeah, plugged in. Got to make sure I'm plugged in. So where was I? Ice cubes. So I have the good fortune to know several arahants, and also I know stories about the previous generation, the teachers of my teachers. So among the arahant disciples of Lumpur Mun, you had Ajahn Mahabua, who was renowned for being quite fierce. And then you have Lumpur Tate, who was renowned for being kind of sweet and soft and having lots of metta and not very fierce. And so Ajahn Mahabua apparently used to criticize Lumpur Tate for being too soft on his monks. Well, Lumpur Tate was more of the thought that if the monks had nice dwellings and if they had nice requisites and if things were comfortable, they'd have no excuses not to practice. And Ajahn Mahabua was more of the school, no, too much comfort is what causes people not to practice. They get too attached to the comfort. And so even amongst arahants, they will have different personality types and different understanding of what they think is correct according to conventional reality. And even among Ajahn Chah's disciples, there are very, very different among the ones who I consider to be the most spiritually developed. They have very different personality types. So you can think that Lumpur Cha would stamp out these kind of Ajahn Chah disciples that sometimes people really resonate with Ajahn Sumedho's teachings, and then they want to find another younger teacher like Ajahn Sumedho who'll teach retreats, and then they'll discover that actually only Ajahn Sumedho teaches like Ajahn Sumedho. And so it's not, you don't kind of stamp out Ajahn Chah cookie-shaped bhikkhus. People come in with different latent tendencies, and then when they become teachers, they will have different skills, and actually there is, I would believe, strength in diversity. So sometimes you need to study with a few different teachers to make sure you get a nice balanced perspective. So we do have our latent tendencies, and there's some very interesting stories. Like the one that gets quoted fairly often is that Sariputta, so let me say this first, only a Buddha has purified his mind of all latent tendencies in terms of character traits. But even a Buddha will have an inclination. So for example, Shakyamuni Buddha, Gautama Buddha's foremost quality was wisdom, whereas Maitreya Buddha's foremost quality will be his loving kindness. Obviously they all have loving kindness, they all have wisdom, but there'll be a particular quality which is extremely powerful. So with Shakyamuni Buddha, we got 84,000 Dhamma verses because he was the wisdom Buddha. Thank goodness that he taught as much as he did and came in this degenerating age to help us through the darkness. And Maitreya, of course, will come at the peak of the eon where where there's much less conflict and much more harmony. But Sariputta, so a Buddha has to train for 4 asankhya. So for those people who think that Buddhas don't talk about past lives, he explained about himself that he received the prediction of Buddhahood as Sumedha when he met Dipankara Buddha, and then Dipankara Buddha announced in 4 asankhyas, that's an incalculable period, plus 100,000 eons, you will be Gautama Buddha. So that's in the Khuddaka Nikaya, it is sutta-based. And the Buddha is explaining to Ananda how he received his prediction of Buddhahood. Sumedha had the ability to become an Arahant that day. He already had all of the 8 jhanas, and he already had psychic powers. And when he saw the Buddha, he thought, I have great spiritual power. Why don't I also lead a multitude of beings to the other shore? So it was because he recognized his power as a spiritual practitioner that he had the potential to be a Buddha. And then Dipankara Buddha saw this and made that prediction. Yes, in 4 asankhya plus 100,000 eons, you will be born Gautama, Siddhartha Gautama, with mother and father so-and-so, and you will get enlightened under such and such a tree, and you will establish this many people in liberation, etc., etc. But so only a Buddha, that's how long it takes to have no latent character tendencies. At least 4 asankhya plus 100,000 eons. So that's millions. Ajahn once said, if you want to know how many past lives a Buddha had, if you said million all day, it still wouldn't cover it. So that's how long it takes not to have any personality traits. So in terms of the answer to the question is yes, we should train ourselves to be more mature, and we should train ourselves to be less neurotic. Please. but also be realistic that some of our character traits are very deep. And so, but particularly the example I was going to give, like Sariputta, he spent 2 asankhya's plus 100,000 eons. So asankhya means incalculable. It means so many eons that you can't even measure it, but a Buddha can. A Buddha can encompass that amount of time, and he collects all of those eons into a huge pile and calls that one incalculable period. And then the minimum to be a teaching Buddha is 4 of those plus 100,000 eons. What's an eon? An eon's the time from when the Big Bang occurs and the universe expands, and then it all contracts and burns up again. So that's an extremely long time already. So 100,000 eons is the little bit at the end, okay? Just so that you understand that. So for all of you with bodhisattva vows, just understand it's a very serious commitment. It's going to take a long time. But if you just deal with it moment by moment, it'll probably be okay. So. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. So the example I wanted to give was Sariputta, 2 asankhya's plus 100,000 eons. So that's how much time he spent to have the wisdom equal to the Gautama Buddha. He had wisdom equal to the Buddha. And so apparently when he would see puddles, he would skip over them. There's this kind of childlike, beautiful, playful skipping over puddles whenever he saw them. So this is a bhikkhu who is an arahant. He has wisdom equal to the Buddha. He's perfectly mindful in all postures. And someone comes and complains to the Buddha, Lord Buddha, why does Sariputta jump over these puddles? It seems so un-bhikkhu-like. And the Buddha says, well, he was a monkey for so many of his past lives that he still has this latent tendency, even after 2 asankhya's and 100,000 eons. When he sees a puddle, he likes to jump over the puddle. So the point is, some of the things that we've been up to it for so long. And even Luang Por Man apparently said to one of his students that there was a period of time when he was born as a dog and he quite enjoyed being a dog. And there were many, many, many lives as a dog. Obviously, a long time before he started becoming a bhikkhu and developed the barami to be Luang Por Man. But when he reviewed his past lives, and he looked into the past, he could see that there was a period of time where he liked being a dog, and he got reborn as a dog many times. And so some of our tendencies are going to be, so even while I'm talking to you, I'm holding some prayer beads, right? This is one of my strange idiosyncrasies. I really like prayer beads, and I normally have a set. And so whether you believe this or not, and you don't need to, but one of my teachers once told me that in a past life, I was a dragon who had a jewel in his claw. And because that life was so long, I got really attached to that feeling of having this precious jewel in my claw. And so that when I have something, it doesn't have to be precious. This is rosewood from India. It's very nice and simple. I also have modest malas, as well as some very nice ones. And when I don't have one, I feel like something's missing. And I won't have the same kind of confidence that I have, that if I'm just holding my set of prayer beads, gives me special confidence, you see. Dragon jewel power. So I can't see that myself yet, but I trust this bhikkhu enough to think that he's probably onto something. And then if you add to that past lives of reciting mantras as a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni or a spiritual practitioner, then you've got other habits on top of that one. So, and there's something else I saw in my niece, just a cute little story I might share. My sister is a midwife, and she's kind of a bit of a hippie. So she was like doing this nude sunbaking on the beach when I was a little boy to try to get the full body tan and stuff. And she liked to go out rock and rolling. She'd do that, what in Australia they call a pub crawl. She'd go out to all these different pubs. Quite a wild woman, my sister. And obviously she's grown up to be much more mature and much more sensible. But in terms of her hobbies, she did African drumming and belly dancing, right? I have an interesting family. So, and she did African drumming and belly dancing, and she was really, I'm trying to find the right word to explain my sister Diane. She's very big-hearted. She's a midwife. She's a bit of a hippie. And she's a bit brash. Yeah, she's brash. So anyway, she has this daughter. And the daughter's like really, really feminine. And the daughter always wants to wear pink. Soft, pale pink. And my sister's like, why do you wear pink? Why don't you wear purple? Or why don't you wear, violent colors, like greens and purples, my sister's favorite colors? No, she wanted to wear pink. And then out of the blue one day, she comes home and she says, Diane, I really want to study ballet. I want to do ballet. And so there's this little girl that's come into my sister's life that is not learning about being super feminine and sweet and wanting to do ballet and wear kind of pink tulle tutus and have pink soft satin slippers. And then, so Diane takes her to ballet school. She does ballet. And a few years later, she's like, Mom, I want to go to the Catholic private school because the girls at that school, they're more elegant, they're nicer, they're better manners. And my sister's like, what? You want to go to a Catholic private school? What's wrong with you? And so what's the point of this story? The point is Tess did not learn that from her mother this lifetime. When I think of Tess, I'm assuming she came from France or something, some kind of aristocratic, refined European, everything had to be pink. She wanted to go to the posh school that she wanted to study ballet, despite my sisters being horrified. So people do come in with their stuff. And then it gets really obvious with like Luang Por Chah, when he was a young boy, putting on his kind of cloth in a way, looking like a monk and pretending to give the precepts as from a little boy. These kind of, okay, so if someone's been a monk for many lives, they'll start to be acting it out even in their childhood. So, and I think you have at Su Yun, don't you? You have this wonderful, great master in the Chan tradition who, I think he was forced to get married and he got married, and he didn't want to have sexual relationships with his wife, and his wife was okay with that too, because they were both really into meditation. So they got married, and they basically let each other meditate, and I don't think the marriage was ever consummated, and eventually he went forth and became a monk. So the point is, if you establish really, really good habits, they are going to become very powerful over time. But back to this life and what we have to work with. In general, yes, we have to try to be mature, and we have to try to grow up. And we have to try to contain our negative traits. And it's really important, I think, to notice certain qualities in particular are really dangerous. For example, envy and jealousy and competition. So if you can see that you're the type of person who has a lot of envy, a lot of jealousy, a lot of competition, then, we do have these Brahma Viharas practices which Lord Buddha gave us to help us have a balanced and holistic practice. So obviously in the mudita practice, the appreciative empathy, mudita, sympathetic joy, we need to train ourselves to be happy for other people when they succeed, or when they have something that we want, or if they're better at something than we are. Because you see in the life of the Buddha himself that Devadatta wanted the fame, he wanted the following, he split the order for a period of time, and he'd been following the Bodhisattva literally for hundreds of thousands of lives, developing lots and lots of virtue. But basically, he wanted to beat him, he wanted to be better than him, and he was motivated by envy and competition. And he's in hell now. So these things are dangerous, and we have to be very careful. So, and things like covetousness, like if you have really a lot of greed, and you maybe have $100 million, but you want 1,000 million. Maybe you have 1,000 million, but you want 10,000 million. It's like if a person has a lot of greed, then hit the death reflections. Really, really remind yourself daily that if you die today, do you still want this? Do you still need this? Do you still feel like you need more of this if you're definitely going to die today? So getting a sense for what our worst tendency is, and getting serious about applying an antidote and reflecting on the drawback, because these things can take us away from spiritual training. In this life, we may have met good teachers, or we have good Kalyanamitta, but in a future life, if we have a strong tendency in certain directions, we can lose the plot and make a lot of bad karma and get in a lot of trouble. So having a look at what are your worst tendencies, and then normally the strict practice of the precepts will help us contain them, as well as the practice of generosity. So if you're a very wealthy person, if you're a bit stingy, then you have to give away a bit more than you might like to. And with the aversive types, we've got the greed and covetousness spectrum of the kilesa, but then you've got the hatred, the irritation. And then so get really serious about the metta practice. So if you lose your temper easily, if you hold on to grudges for a long time, then you really need to be holding the loving kindness in your heart and learning how to radiate it to more beings and more classes of beings to try to contain this angry tendency. So I wouldn't put trying to perfect my character or personality. I wouldn't say it's the most important thing. Say the most important thing is developing mindfulness and wisdom. So that means mindfulness and clear comprehension. So that means knowing the qualities that are affecting your mind, being mindful about what you're about to say. Mindfulness and wisdom is what's going to liberate you. And if you want to perfect your personality, that is going to take 4 asankhyas plus 100,000 eons. It's not an easy thing to do. But everybody knows they might have an area where they're a bit overreactive and they need to develop more restraint, patience, circumspection. So yes, work on that. Some people may have had some traumatic experiences in childhood or even in adult life, and you might need some therapy to help you if you have some compulsive, unhealthy habits, reactive, kind of self-harming habits. If you get triggered, you might need some therapy. That's okay. But however much time you give to giving attention to the personality, you probably need to be giving twice as much time to just developing mindfulness of a thought as a thought, a feeling as a feeling, a body as a body, knowing basically whether it's wholesome or unwholesome or neutral. And because that's the quality of awareness that's going to liberate you. But our negative traits can sabotage the spiritual container and the spiritual process. So we do have to keep an eye on them. We do have to contain them. So it's a bit tricky, and there's a lot of areas where we can give a lot of attention to because we're all works in progress, obviously. Yeah, middle way, yes. Try to grow up and be more mature, too. And be kind to yourself in the process. And give a lot of attention to being mindful of a body as a body, thoughts as thoughts, feelings as feelings. Try to get some concentration. Reduce the number of rebirths that you have to endure.
Thank you.
Develop some liberating insights this lifetime.
We'll try. Thank you, Ajahn. Question number 2. Hi, Ajahn. Usually after meditation for a few hours throughout the day, the mental energy is so bright, awake, and so powerful that I could not fall asleep at night. Can you advise how to balance it out, or what is the best way to deal with it? Thank you.
Yes, so this is not uncommon for people who meditate a lot and start to get some good results in their practice. Is the brightness of the mind is suppressing or not allowing the hindrance of sloth and torpor, the sleepiness and the dullness into the mind to such an extent that it then becomes difficult to fall to sleep at night. So Lord Buddha recommends, so as the first thing to try is if you do loving kindness meditation as you're falling asleep, it has a calming and relaxing effect on the mind. So breathing in may be well, breathing out may be happy, breathing in may be well. So try that. Try spreading loving kindness when you lie down and as you're falling asleep until you fall asleep. It's a very, very wholesome way to spend the time, and produces great good karma, has a protective quality, and will also mean that unlikely to have inauspicious dreams and more likely to have auspicious dreams. Other things you can do, of course, is using substances which are from nature, which help. So a little bit of lavender oil on the heart chakra area, a cup of chamomile tea. You know, if it goes on for a while and you're starting to get quite tired because you're not sleeping properly, chamomile tea, some lavender on the heart chakra, and there is Joyce gives me some St. John's wort herb in Malaysia, because when I teach retreats in Malaysia, we have the question and answer session at the end of the day, because I don't want people proliferating all night about other people's questions. So I answer the questions at the end of the day. But then for myself, it meant I've had to kind of review all my files of things I've heard from other teachers and experiences from my own practice. And I've got myself quite alert and the mind quite stimulated in answering all of the meditators' questions. And so I often find it difficult to fall asleep, but we do have a very early morning chanting session. So that herb, St. John's wort, does help. And some people have also tried and got good results with the ganja that has the THC taken out of it, the part that makes you stoned taken out, CBD oil. So that helps some people relax. And it's legal in some countries, not legal in others. But if it has the THC taken out of it, I think it's fine. It's not intoxicating. So you can experiment with those. Sweet dreams.
Thank you, Prajan. Question 3. Will Ajahn organize online retreat? Thank you.
No. Sorry. Now you're going to know what you're going to want to know why. So in my monastery, there are 5 monks. JC's got a crying face icon. It's okay, JC. So anyway, let's just say this. The monks who do online teachings, retreats, tend to have a little army of helpers helping them. And lovely junior monks and lovely translators and people doing all of the chores and people telling what monks. So in my monastery, there are 5 terras, all of whom are very diligent and keen on their meditation. So what that means is I am the administrator of the monastery and I don't have any help with that. So when guests come, I receive the guests. When it's time to look at the accounts, I look at the accounts. When there's a building project that needs supervising, I'm supervising it. So in my life already, I'm already wearing many different caps on my bald head. You can't see them, but they're there. I have an accountant hat, a social worker hat, a forest regeneration project hat, a building hat, all sorts of things going on here. And so, yeah, I don't want to overextend myself in anymore. And I want to be someone who practices what I preach. So when I tell you that you shouldn't get too busy and that you should try to keep some simplicity in your life and that you should have a consistent practice where you're meditating morning, afternoon, and evening, I also want to be doing that so that when I say that to you, I can say it with integrity. I don't want to be running around all day and come and look at you and say, you guys need to be meditating more. You guys need to be having a more simple life. So for that reason, I'm not taking on any extra teaching burdens at this stage. Thank you for asking, though. It's always nice to be invited. So.
Thank you, Prajan. We shall organize one face-to-face when
yes, I would like to teach another retreat in Malaysia, and I would like to teach another retreat in person in Melbourne. I would like to do that. But you see, the difference is when I physically get there, I've removed myself from the monastery. I don't have to take responsibility for the monastery, you see. And but when I'm in the monastery and being responsible for the monastery, taking on teaching of a retreat is a different phenomenon. So, but I do hope there will be more retreats in the future. Thank you.
We hope the same. Question 4. Hi Ajahn, for a patient with dementia, how is his or her state of mind in terms of mindfulness when he or she departs from this world? Thank you.
So I don't know from my ability, I can't review, but I do know what Ajahn has said. So when someone was asking him, a lot will depend upon the way the person has lived their life before they had dementia. So Ajahn has said that, and I do believe that he does have the ability to check the quality of the chitta, which is deeper than the superficial sanya perceptions. And so for people who have had a regular chanting and meditation practice and who have cultivated metta, even though memory can degenerate, they can be experiencing a reasonable level of well-being. And when the mind leaves the body in those last moments, clarity returns. So it's like some kind of karma that's playing out where the brain is degenerating. But when the consciousness leaves that degenerating brain, if this person has cultivated mindfulness, the mindfulness can return in that moment. Actually, even before they leave the body, there's a period where if they're having a somewhat slow death, there's a period where consciousness starts to extract itself from the body. And I remember once reading an article from a person who had done some work in hospices, and he had said it was not uncommon for people who had experienced dementia to sit up like the day before they died and recognize people and speak with lucidity, because the consciousness was already leaving the body and getting away from the brain that wasn't working, but the files came back and the clarity came back. So I think one of the most important things is, before we get demented, that we cultivate metta, keep our sila, and have that habit of cultivating mindfulness. And yes, and it'll depend person by person, of course. And so I've heard some very interesting stories of people who were quite cantankerous and grumpy, who, when they got dementia, got Alzheimer's, became really sweet people. And and then you have, people saying, "My mother's getting dementia, but she's so much nicer now." She's forgotten what to nag you about and bring up that thing you did 20 years ago to complain about one more time. So but then also you had people who were sweet and lovely who became more cranky when the brain started to degenerate. So it's a vulnerable state that we're in, and we don't really know which way it's going to go. But yeah, depends case by case, I think. But I do think dedicating merit, if they're your relatives, somebody has dementia, and playing chanting around them if they're willing to listen to it. Play chanting, do chanting, dedicate merit, spread metta, help them, keep pouring some brightness in there.
Thank you, Ajahn. Question 5. Dear Ajahn Achalu, thank you for taking my question. I would greatly appreciate if Ajahn could share your insights on the possibility of a person dying from COVID accidentally or due to current dire circumstances, even when it is not his karma to die yet. In this COVID pandemic, could it be possible for a person to die accidentally, meaning that it is not due to his karma, but because of circumstances such as accidentally or unknowingly contracting COVID from a friend, or no hospital bed available for him, or lack of oxygen mask or ICU facilities at a time when he was ill and most needed to save him? So due to such circumstances, he died even though it's not his time yet. Thank you so much, Ajahn, for your teaching.
Yeah, so all of these things, there's no bed, there's no mask, or he was taking care of someone else and caught it from someone else. All of those things are karma. So it's you're not going to die accidentally because it wasn't your karma yet. If you die, it was your karma. So, and there are different karmas. There is individual karma, and then there's kind of shared karma, group karma. And obviously with the COVID situation, we're going through a serious ripening of a heavy group karma. And obviously some people are more affected than others. But it's part of our karma to be in the world while the world is going through this. And so I think what people need to understand is that we all have killed many beings in past lives, and we all have the karma that we could die at any moment. That's actually a given. And if you, as far as I'm concerned, that's a given. We could all die at any moment, and that would be our karma, because we've all been housewives that chopped the heads off chickens several times a week for many lifetimes. We've all been men that went to war and killed people at the instructions of the king, fishermen, etc. And so the amount of beings that we've killed in past lives is enormous. And the fact that we don't die right now is because of potently powerful supportive merits. So you have fed monks, you have fed nuns, you have supported others' bodies with nourishment. you probably, as Buddhist practitioners, released large animals that were about to be slaughtered, or released fish into the oceans, etc., taken care of parents in old age. So we have powerful, potent, protective merits that are helping to keep at bay the karmas that would cause us to die. So if you die under any circumstances, that was your karma. The circumstances that you meet that cause the death, that's karma. And if you had what appeared to be an accidental death, it was your karma to die that way. No accidents. And, obviously, when you keep precepts, meditate, and dedicate merit to beings you may have harmed, ask for their forgiveness, spread loving kindness, you are increasing your chances of having powerful, potent, protective merits that will help you to have a long, safe, and healthy life. But we all have complex karmas. So cherish this birth and practice as much as you can today while you still can.
Yes, Ajahn. Question 6. Hi, Ajahn. Could you explain mental formations? It is such a confusing word. If my understanding is correct, feelings and perceptions are part of mental formations. But feeling, perceptions, and mental formations are separate aggregates. So how does this actually work? Many thanks for your kind reply.
So I think it's good to give some examples. So you're walking in a garden, you see a rose. There's a perception, rose. You go and you smell the rose. There's a pleasant feeling, you like the smell. And then that smell reminds me of my grandmother's hand lotion. That's the mental proliferation that was dependent upon the sense contact and then the feeling. And then the next thing that might occur would be, my grandma was really nice sometimes, but the way she used to smack my bottom with her slipper when I was naughty, I really didn't like when my grandma smacked me on the bottom with her slipper. Mental formation, proliferation. Then sad feeling. So it's like the mental proliferation actually caused a different feeling. Now there's a sad feeling. Yeah, and while I'm feeling sorry for myself, the way my own child talked to me this morning just isn't fair, because I never slapped them on the bottom with my slipper. I was so much nicer to my children than my parents were to me. Sad feeling created another mental proliferation. But then you realize you're still in the garden, you look at the sky, it's a nice blue day, and you think, why am I thinking these things on such a lovely day? A perception of a blue sky, a happy feeling, drop the negative feeling, look at the fluffy clouds. So they are all working very, very closely together, but they are separate phenomena. You just have to have a close, that's the one of the benefits of meditation retreats, is that when you do lots and lots of meditation, the mindfulness gets sharper, and it's almost like things slow down, but the mind actually got fast enough to catch triggers and moment by moment sense contact. Sometimes you'll be sitting in meditation, the thought bubbles out of the chitta, just a thought, then that stimulates a feeling, emotion, and then that'll stimulate a different kind of a thought, and you can watch the way they work and play off each other. They feed each other. So we need to have a lot of mindfulness so that we can keep the mind, as Ajahn says, keep the mind in the middle, not falling into liking or disliking. And we can kind of stop mental proliferations before they become a fully blown proliferation. So, because they just feed and feed and feed and stimulate each other and keep going in circles. And we have samsara. And if you are able to develop mindfulness and see a thought as a thought, feeling as a feeling, and not believe it, rest in the middle, keep the mind in the middle, then you can get some space from these things and see them as separate, but interacting with one another, overlapping in a way. But,
Thank you, Prajan. Prajan, do you want to go for one more question? Or
no, I'm exhausted. Those questions exhausted me.
Yeah.
Good question.
Last two
I do like to have nice, juicy questions. Thank you. Make me work hard.
Thank you, Bante.
Oh, so cute. You're welcome.
Thank you, Bante.
Thank you, Bante.
Thank you, Bante.
Yes.
Thank you,
Sadhu,
Ajahn.
sadhu.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Thank you, Ajahn. Thank you, Ajahn.
And take care, everybody.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you, Ajahn.